Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of this episode is Sometimes It's Adam, Eve, and Steve. A look at marriage throughout history and throughout the world.
Yes, look at you leading off with the thruple.
By the way, John, I just want to say good luck with getting that title on the Podbean page. I think that may be the longest one yet.
Yeah, we might have hit the character maximum, but don't worry, I'll figure it out.
Throughout just end right there. No. I remember there was a guy at the O'Keeffe Museum one time that told me every show has to have a colon in it. So it's like George O'Keeffe colon. Another place or so,
Absolutely. And ours does. I've been using the dash. So I'll do the episode 3 dash, then the title, but the subtitle always goes on its own line on the I'm taking you behind the curtain. Behind the curtain when I do all the metadata.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, the longer the title, from an academic standpoint, the longer the title, the more serious the article.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, there's been some press out there about podcasters using stuff that is not theirs in their podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I want everyone to know that my partner painstakingly gives credit to there's the bibliography. What do you call it? The bibliography?
Yeah,
the reference page.
List.
If you ever have a chance, please go to our Podbean site and check out the reference page. Or if you're listening through YouTube, I put it all down there in the description. Every single reference that we use. I'm very proud of you and proud to be a part of it.
Well, it's all my anthropology trait. I mean, it's okay to read other people's stuff and quote other people's stuff. You just have to give them credit for it. Just give them credit.
Just give them credit.
Besides, I don't have a new thought in my head.
Original thought. Look who's talking. I mean, I'm right there with you. But I look forward to the day when this podcast is referenced.
Ooh,
that will be a banner day for Intro to Anthro with two humans.
Mary does it's a pop culture website as seen through using Cher as a lens.
Yeah,
the
so fantastic. Cher. Highly recommended. The show endorses that website. Right.
It's called sharescholar.com, and she gets referenced in books, and it's really interesting to see her.
That's cool.
Yeah, because it's really highbrow but funny, and also it's pop culture. It's Cher. So.
Yeah, and if you haven't gone to that website, please do, and I will make sure that I put it in the show description.
Cool.
But it's sharescholar.com. It's easy to remember.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to get quoted. It's just, I'm jealous.
Nothing's happened yet. You will.
So let's go ahead and get started. So it's election time again, John.
Yes, it is.
Probably know.
Mm-hmm.
And like many people in the country during election time, I often get unsolicited emails and unsolicited text.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about the ones that are coming from politicians who I support, or even politicians who bought the mailing list from the politicians I support.
Right.
I'm talking about the emails you get from it may be like a former coworker, or maybe a cousin, or maybe a cousin's husband. Or
thought you'd find this interesting.
Yeah. Or a friend of your mom. The worst one's like a friend of my mom's,
Right. See, you're not on social media.
Right.
So you don't even know. This is you're talking from somebody from 1997 right now.
Yeah. Please bear with me.
Emails are the easy part now. There's a whole war going on that you don't know about.
I've been in a bomb shelter for 30 years, and I'm just coming out what is
You're one of those Japanese soldiers that still thinks the war's going on.
Yeah. So I'm talking emails and, texts. But yeah, it would be Facebook, I guess, or Instagram, whatever it is now. Tweets. What do you guys do? Tweets. But usually, like I say, and they'll send it to me, and my first thought is always, oh my God, somebody died. so I'll get it. But like, why would they be reaching out to me?
Yeah.
And then I open it up, and it's some offensive, like just really offensive political email, chain letter usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't heard from you in years, and this is what you're going to send to me, how to like to reach out.
Yep.
And I'm all for like people. I think everybody should have an opinion. I think everybody should be able to express an opinion. But when you send it out unsolicited, it's like I didn't ask for your opinion.
Yeah. No.
You're like the guy at work who eavesdrops and then tries to tell you what you should do with your marriage or with.
Yep. Oh God. Hey, I'm just. What happened to me?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Or the neighbor, every time you go out to pull out the barrels or something, there, a neighbor comes over and tells you what to do with your house. Or something,
Yeah.
And usually these emails will pull out the old standard, standard bugaboos like socialism,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I always, there's nothing like getting an email from somebody, a relative who that Social Security is their only source of income. And they're bashing like, we got to stamp out socialism in this country. It's like, don't come crying to me when you get your benefits taken away. And what's that in The Princess Bride? What is it? I don't think that means what you think it means. And then it's rising crime and the border they'll talk about. And then, welfare mothers still pop up occasionally. And then they always throw in something new about wokeism, which I think is their way of trying to say, like, I'm up to date. It's woke. Yeah. I'm anti-wokeism. And it seems like those anti-woke arguments sound a lot like the anti-politically correct arguments that they used to make back in the 90s. And then also the un-American activity arguments that they used to make back in the 50s. So I don't know how up to date that is. And then at some point within the election cycle, somebody will invariably start talking about traditional marriage and same-sex marriage. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And without fail, somebody will make the comment about traditional marriage. They'll say, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Invariably, it comes up. And
it's pretty good saying.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. It's
been around a while. It's a little long in the tooth. It's a little long in the tooth.
Yeah.
I think that's what Donna Summers said back in the 70s, right?
Really?
That got her in trouble with her van.
Jesus, that was during the 70s when it was a free for all. That's pre-AIDS. That's when everybody was having sex with everybody.
What the hell?
Yeah,
it's there.
If someone's genitalia wasn't in your mouth, you weren't paying attention.
But honestly, to me though, that saying is like that's what she said joke of political commentary. You know what I mean? It's like it's kind of it's not that great of a rhyme scheme. And it's not really that highbrow of a joke.
Right. My neighbors, by the way, are named Adam and Eve.
Really?
Yes. That's sweet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta love them for keeping it.
I know. I
mean, Mary and I always get John and Mary. Oh, John and Mary, very religious.
Yeah, it's so sweet. I love it.
But usually when people make that comment, they'll kind of pause afterwards. So as if they're waiting for you. You have to acknowledge it. You know what I mean? You have to, or like laugh or something.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah. Okay.
It's not like you, like I don't know what they're waiting for, like applause or something. Like they've written a great American novel or something.
Soon we'll have AI to respond to those things.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Upside down smiley face. But the thing is, for me as an anthropologist, whenever I hear that statement, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Yes.
My first reaction as an anthropologist is, well, it is and it isn't. Because anthropologists have studied marriage a lot. Mm-hmm. And I would say that, next to culture, just the concept of culture,
Yep.
marriage is probably the one topic that anthropologists have studied more than any other.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
This is core. We're getting down to humanness now.
Right. And also the reason is marriage is one of the ways that basic ways that groups interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And usually you think about, well, it's individual.
Talking about key parties. You're talking about key parties, right?
No, I don't think. I think you're jumping ahead a little bit. I'm talking about we're back at even thousands of years before that.
Bone parties or whatever they threw.
Yeah. Maybe we should have a separate discussion about this.
I'll do it after the podcast.
but hey, there's no bad questions. There's no bad
Thank
questions.
you.
So, and I appreciate you speaking up and asking the question. But it's been between. We always think of marriage being between individuals, but really, throughout most of our history, marriage has been a way to link groups together. The marriage was what provided how to increase your alliances or increase your economic status by marrying these two people together.
Right. You take your daughter, his son, you marry him, and now we've got peace.
Right.
Or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And probably even from a prehistoric, it's hard to say like what marriage was with prehistoric humans. But again, you could see where if you marry somebody or mate with somebody from another group, you increase your territory, for example. You take people who could have been enemies and you have made them friends or family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what I did.
You increased your territory. Your vows were really strange. Your vows were really strange. Talk about
hectares and we there was
about feeding rights and about like hunting,
mineral.
Yeah. And probably the concept that has shaken traditional marriage throughout history, even more so than same-sex marriage, has been the idea that people could marry for love.
Yeah.
And the
Still not a thing. We're getting there.
Yeah, for some people it's not. But it's that idea that you could marry for love is a relatively new concept that only began in like the end of the 1700s, early 1800s.
Right. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So think about it. For our 300,000 year history of humans.
Yeah.
And mating.
A couple hundred, 300, right. That's been for love.
That we thought you could marry somebody for love. You could choose somebody on your own and marry them for love.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
There's so many interesting shows about matchmaking out there, like on Netflix. You see these matchmaking shows, and I remember watching one and thinking, "Oh my God, how archaic and offensive!" And then I started to watch them, and I was like, "Oh, it's like, is this any like how is this better or worse than going on Tinder?" You know what I mean? It's like there's it's in my way of getting into a monogamous relationship this was back when I was drinking, but I would wait for the bar to close and whoever was left, we'd go home together and then we'd date for 4 years. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it's, God, I watch my younger friends with a Tinder. My God, it just seems like a nightmare because nobody wants to commit. You can always swipe left again or swipe right again or whatever way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's always grass is greener, so nobody commits to anything. Nobody wants to work through anything.
Right.
And all these matchmakers on these shows are like, look, there's no perfect match. You've got to compromise,
Yeah.
It's like, wow, having a matchmaker say that is kind of, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. All I'm saying is there's no good way we have not figured this out. And the fact that you say it's so new makes total sense.
It's only 200 years.
Yeah. No wonder there's a 60% divorce rate. What do we know about anything? I mean, we're sending out Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve emails.
Yeah.
We're idiots.
Well, very good points. But yeah, that's why people were so afraid of marriage for love, because they said love, because you don't know, you can't trust love.
Love doesn't exist. It's not a thing. It's a concept. It's a spiritual modality, I guess.
And it waxes and wanes. And so traditionally what people thought throughout history was, you're getting married so that to bring wealth to your family.
Right. That makes a lot more sense than love.
Yeah.
Than swiping right.
And I think even in there's certain cultures, I think for arranged marriages, like in India, where people who still do arranged marriage, it's like, first we'll get married, then we'll fall in love. So,
we'll work it out. We'll work it out.
Right.
Yeah. It's amazing. Because people, what is it that, the idea, I know there are some studies where I read that book Blink, where things happen in a moment. And one of the studies that's mentioned in there is these sociologists who can tell, they can interview each member of the couple, and within like 7 seconds or 15 seconds, some ungodly short period of time, they can predict very accurately whether that couple's going to stay together or divorce.
Really?
Yeah, just based on a couple of things.
Oh no!
Isn't that crazy? I'll try to
crazy.
find that. That. I have it here somewhere. Anyway.
Yeah,
but isn't that incredible?
Yeah, that is incredible. Oh, that's it. But yeah, I mean, it's
they can just tell by facial reactions to each other. Like it's very, they can. They're very accurate, uncanny.
Yeah. I wonder if they tell the people, like, well.
I don't know. Would you want to know?
No, I wouldn't want to know.
I knew you and Mary were going to go. I knew.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
The first one, not so much. I didn't know. I didn't know one way or another. The first one I was hoping.
Yeah.
The second one I knew.
I'm always, I'm kind of the same way. My MO was like, you spend the night once and then you move in and you're together for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, if she'll take me, I'll stay. Okay.
You're like a stray alley cat.
Yeah,
just comes in there as long as
I immediately start washing dishes. I do things that Well, he's not
actually
so bad.
Nice. Why don't you come stay at our place? Give us some extra time.
For you young men out there, always wash the dishes. You want to hang out? Wash those dishes. And make the bed. They love it.
Oh yeah.
You make the bed.
Made the bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They always criticize you. They don't like it the way you made it, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You make the attempt, and then you listen to them go, not like that. You got to put the big pillows in the back or whatever they're,
Yeah. Mary's big into hospital corners, and I just can't do them.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. That's tough. How did she learn that?
Her mom. Her mom passed it on. That's another cultural thing passed down.
I can do hospital corners. I can, but it's not, that's, you just got to do it.
I feel like I'm being held down in the bed.
Right. I always have to undo them. I need my feet to be out. My feet need to have air.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hospital corners belong in a hospital. Mm-hmm. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
People
when you're
can't
keeping
move around.
Typhoid fever inside the sheets.
Right.
Yeah.
Not in the bedroom at your house.
No, not in the bedroom.
I'm going to send around an email to everybody when you get this.
I don't even know how you do those hospital corners because you got that big sex swing hanging there. Like, how do you lasso that away? And how do you get in there?
Exactly. We'll put a picture of that up on the website. So blur it out. Blur me out when you do it. That's the only shot I have. Stephanie Coontz, who's a writer and historian, says in her book, Marriage, a History, that people in the 1700s were completely worried about people marrying for love. And the reason is they thought it would lead to rampant individualism.
Mm-hmm. And it did.
Yeah.
It did. They were right. Now here we are.
Yeah. Conservatives at that time thought that the pursuit of happiness, which is in the Declaration of Independence, but in marriage, it meant the pursuit of happiness by marrying somebody that you love, would undermine the social and moral order of society.
I agree.
Oh, no.
I am 100%. Because look what's happened with our individuality. Now we all just do FaceTime shows, you know, or whatever. Now we're just taking pictures of ourselves all the time.
It all starts with you marrying somebody you love instead of being told who to marry by your dad.
What do you know? What do you know about what you want?
Yeah. That's the way they saw it. It was too important for the young people, lovers, to make their own decisions.
I agree. I didn't know how to wipe my ass at 20. What did I know about anything? I didn't get married till 30.
Yeah.
But even then, I was like 2 years sober. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I hang out with people who are 2 years sober now, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking?
Yeah. Getting sober is one of the hardest things in the world. You don't need to be throwing a new relationship.
No, God, no. But you got nothing else to do but have sex.
Yeah.
Taking away everything.
All that nervous energy. You just go walking around. What'd you do? You got a piercing, right? Then you go
I got my nipple pierced. That's what I did in my first 6 months of being sober. Somebody told me to go out and meditate on the beach. I meditated for about 3 seconds and then walked into a tattoo parlor in Venice and got my nipple pierced. Should that person be deciding who to marry?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's a little too spontaneous. That's
a
little too spontaneous.
Insane.
You don't know.
I was just a nut job.
Yeah. So a lot of anxiety about marrying for love then, and I would say even marrying same-sex marriage now, it stems from an individual's worldview. And we'll get into what a worldview is when we do our episode on culture, which I think it's coming up.
Excellent.
And we'll get into what culture is and how culture works and what worldviews are. And that, I think it's coming up, but that's for hardcore intro to Anthro fans.
Yeah. That's going to be a tough one. Yeah. We lock you in a room. We don't let you pee. And we just go to town on culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's for people that like follow this show around during the summer, get in the bus and follow it around.
Wait,
Two human heads out there. Real shirt nerds. But anyway, but briefly, I want to talk about it now because it has a lot to do with how people see marriage and what is it.
You're going to discuss culture, but you're doing it in a 9-point font, right? You're giving a 9 point right now. Well, later, when you do a full episode on culture, it's going to be a bold 16-point font. You know what I mean?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Is that really what? Do people say that?
No.
Is that a TV term?
No.
Give it to me in a 9-point font.
I did have somebody give me notes on a script and say, could you make it 17% funnier?
Really?
Yeah. It was some odd number like that. I was like, what? Is he serious?
Do you think they were screwing with you?
I couldn't figure it out. I was like, are they trying to be funny? Like, what was it?
Do they have a program for that?
I don't know.
Just that little sliding bar.
Why not make it 100% every time?
Yeah. Yeah, if you could do 17% funnier,
do 27. Yeah.
Double the funny. So anyway, researchers B.J. Walsh and J.R. Middleton say that worldviews answer 4 questions. They answer who we are, where are we, why are we suffering, and what is the remedy?
Oh, boy. I can answer those, but I don't want JR and BJ to not have a career.
In 1997, in an article called Different Worldviews, Different Morals, America's Cultural Divide, sociologist Lynn Arnett Jensen said that there are basically 2 worldviews in this country. She said that there are those whose worldview tends towards orthodoxy and those whose worldview tends towards progressivism.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. And
Keep it the same or change it.
Right. And she said that these 2 groups have very different understandings of the basis of morality. And those who have an orthodox worldview believe that morality was given to humans by a higher authority.
Okay.
In other words, given to us by God.
Yes.
And those with a progressivist worldview, on the other hand, see human involvement and agency in creating our moral rules and beliefs.
Well, yeah, but what about the mix? Like the Jews believe God gave us wheat, but humans make the bread. We co-create together.
Right.
Which I like that.
To me, I think it could be a combination of the two. Like, I don't see how one is necessarily, but that's
she's
coming
just
from
saying
my
those
worldview.
are two major groups.
Yeah.
This is the big division, and then there's lots of subdivisions underneath there. There's overlap. Right.
And she says that it's the division between these two worldviews, the Orthodox worldview and the progressivist worldview, that causes our cultural wars.
I totally agree.
Yeah. And we're seeing that. This was written in 1997, but we're seeing that still today.
Yes.
And it's probably been that way for the last 500 years, honestly.
All right. I'm getting nervous about where you're taking us on this one.
Just bear with me.
All right. Jesus.
Yeah. And to better understand how worldviews influence morality and how morality affects worldviews, Jensen interviewed people from both the Orthodox worldview and the progressivist worldview.
Okay.
And what she found was that the Orthodox interviewees all spoke of the ethic of divinity. And that was that God had created humans and God has a plan for humans. And if you live in accordance with God's plan, you'll be rewarded. And if you don't follow God's plan, you'll be punished.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Yes.
And
I'm familiar.
Okay. Please stop me if you disagree with anything.
No, I'm with you.
And the progressivists, on the other hand, reject the view that a higher authority has directly revealed its will to God or to humans. And they felt that it was up to humans to create their own morality. And she said that humans will formulate their morality through a number of different ways. Some will do it through science and some will do it through personal experience.
Okay. Okay.
But again, for progressivists,
it's very black and white, though. I just feel like there's so much in between there. There's so much wiggle room.
That's
free will, just to throw one thing in there.
And I think to me, like, if you have a mix, then you can kind of understand a little bit. There's some agreement. There's some give in there. You know what I mean?
I feel like that's where most of us are in some, But I get what she's saying. The concept is that we see the world as if there are two worldviews. One is this, one is atheism, one is theism. And even though there's lots of mixing and crossover, that's the way we kind of can. If we had to group everybody into two groups, that's what we would do.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so what she says, though, is the people she interviewed with the Orthodox worldview, when they looked to marriage, they saw, they went to the scriptures. They went to the Old Testament. They went to the New Testament. And they say, again, this is because it was given by a higher power. And because they saw a hierarchy in the scriptures, for example, between God and humans and between Jesus and the church, they thought
husband and wife.
Right. There should also be that same hierarchy in the marriage.
Yes. Yes.
The husband's the leader, the husband's the provider, and the wife is the nurturer, and the wife is the follower.
Well, it's in one of the epistles, right? One of the it's one of the apostles brings that up, like that woman worships man, man worships God.
Yeah. Yeah. Again,
I don't subscribe.
Yeah, no, neither do I. But we're talking about the whole conceptual framework here.
This is our last podcast, I can tell.
I hope not. Just bear with me. Progressivists, on the other hand, had a more egalitarian view of marriage.
Yeah,
and where the husband and wife are equal and having mutual respect for each other, and each one contributing to the marriage. And whether or not you subscribe to this worldview, or whichever worldview you subscribe, you could see where someone from the Orthodox worldview would make the statement, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Yes. Yes, I do.
So, because it's all based on scripture and it's all about hierarchy. Yes. And if you have two Adams,
if you have an Adam and a Steve, who's in charge?
Right. Yes. Or if you have like two, like Adam and Eve are both co-leaders or both co-nurturers, or maybe Eve is like the provider and Adam is the guy, the nurturer. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I would love that. That sounds fantastic.
That does sound fantastic. But again, it causes confusion in that hierarchy for that worldview.
Yes.
And nothing makes humans angrier than confusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
That, boy, did I learn that. When my first, the first show I sold, we had the pilot. We went to test the pilot.
Yeah.
And you go into these little these, it's like a little theater. And they bring in like 100 people and they give each of them a controller.
Yeah.
And if they watch the pilot, and if they think it's funny, they turn the dial up. And if they don't like it, they turn the dial down. And if they would change the channel, they hit the red button. And then they're out. And so you're in behind a one-way mirror, and you're watching them. And it's, you see your whole, everything you've worked on, just up to these people. And you just see them, and you have a graph of each person, and they're going up and down, up and down. And when they hit the red button, they just drop out. Oh. It's just horrible. And they turn, and a 99.9% of the time, they hit the red button or turn down when they don't understand. We hate to not understand. We hate it.
Yeah.
It's not entertaining. It's not fun to not understand.
We get angry. Like the confusion leads to
funny?
Anger. Yeah.
He said nipples, but it didn't have anything to do with anything. You're like, well, it's just funny. No, it's not, because I don't follow it. The logic police.
Were they getting paid? Were those people paid?
They're like tourists and stuff. When you come out to LA, you'll see guys handing you free passes. Come see a TV show and you get paid.
Yeah.
One of the people in the testing room, because I'm looking at all the people, because I'm like, Jesus Christ, each one of these people represents like 10 million Americans or whatever.
Right.
And one guy was asleep. And I pointed to the woman. I pointed at him. I'm like, he's asleep. And so they go, and so she goes out. She sends one of the people out and wakes him up. But the show is already screening. So now you've got like a security guy waking up this person, and now everybody else is looking at him, so they're not paying attention.
It's flatlining.
It was the worst experience. I wanted to kill myself.
Yeah.
And you know what? They always have good food.
Really?
Whenever there's good catering, you're getting ripped off. That's a lesson to the people out there.
I mean, in hindsight, the security guard could have gone out and just turned it up to funny.
Exactly.
Just turned it all the way
just
up.
Just let me take his plate. Yeah, don't wake him up. Just crank that thing. Don't hit the red button.
I worked on, that show for VH1, and we had a paid audience in there.
Yeah.
And it was usually like Russian immigrants or drug addicts that would go to the agency to be paid.
Yep.
And silence.
150 people's salaries are depending on these people.
Yeah, I know. And just silence. Silence for hours of like episode after, could you do multiple episodes?
Yeah.
Silence. And then after about, it was like being on a flight. They'd suddenly get all like they had to stand up, and then suddenly they start clapping and everything. So some episodes were like really loud.
So weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
So Stephanie Coontz, though, just going back, she says that almost every marital and sexual arrangement we have seen in recent years, however startling it may appear, has been tried somewhere before.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Anything, same-sex marriage, polygamy.
I've tried everything, all right? At some point, somebody's got to get up to make the coffee. You know what I mean?
Hey, save it for the memoir. Don't give it away here. Don't give away those teasers. And so, one thing you and I have seen by doing this podcast is that humans do a lot of different things.
Yes.
And anytime you make these blanket statements about what it should be or what humans do, and I'm making a blanket statement now about it. But anytime you say that, you're just setting yourself up for people to say, bullshit, what about such and such?
Yep, it's true.
Yeah. So, but one thing, every culture in the world has an incest taboo.
Oh, boy.
It's a cultural universal, meaning every culture in the world has a taboo about incest.
Yes, which makes total sense until Game of Thrones.
But I never watched Game of Thrones.
There's tons of incest in Game of Thrones. Yes, it's the craziest thing.
Well, here's the thing: the incest taboo usually tells us whom we can have sex with.
Yeah,
and the anthropologists Gary Ferraro and Susan Andreatta say incest taboos tell us who is out of bounds.
Right.
So, and marriage, formalized marriage, helps tell us, or like, kind of, it helps set that taboo. It sets those boundaries.
Yes,
marriage does. It helps formalize the incest taboo.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but most of it, they have the most common incest taboo is between relationships or sex between people within the same nuclear family.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are, there's other incest taboo. In other words, so that each culture has a different interpretation or different definition of what family is, meaning what those boundaries are. But almost all of them have within the nuclear family.
Yeah. For God's sakes.
And then there are also some who, you can't marry first cousins,
right?
For example.
Yeah. Although in my family, my extended family, there's some gray area there.
Yeah, I think there's still a few states that say
we're from Kansas, okay.
So. Charles Darwin actually was married to his first cousin.
Jesus, Chuck! What was he thinking?
Named Emma Wedgwood. And he always, because he had written an article about like inbreeding among animals and about what it does to the
gene pool.
He didn't know, And he always thought that he was always a little apprehensive of the fact that he'd married his first cousin because I guess they had 10 children and 3 of them died before they were age 10.
Yeah, but that was true for everybody at that time.
Right. But he also, some of them that had survived in relationships were having trouble producing children as well.
Ah, interesting.
Having babies.
Well,
so
that
was
shouldn't
something
have married his cousin.
Yeah. And then also, Coontz says that in the 6th century, the Catholic Church started preaching against marrying a brother's widow, which is...
Okay. All
we
right.
talked about it in the Rubbers, Rhythm, and Rings episode. About the levirate marriage.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's weird. If I died, you're saying if I died and my brother's wife died, him marrying my wife would be weird.
Right.
Yeah. I think that, I'm with that taboo.
Remember, it was a way to maintain that alliance, though.
Yes.
That alliance that had been created.
Yes. That makes sense. Because if the older brother is married to the oldest daughter of 2 kings, right? And they bring the kingdom together. Yeah. And the oldest brother dies in battle, the families are separated, especially if they haven't had children.
Right.
So you'd have the next brother up go marry the daughter on the other side to keep things kosher.
Right, exactly. And that's what Henry VIII, actually, Catherine of Aragon was first married to Henry VIII's brother Arthur, who was older.
And he died.
And then Arthur died, and Henry VIII had to go marry Catherine of Aragon to maintain that. And actually, my great-grandparents, my great-grandparents, my great-grandfather was married to a woman and had a one baby, and then she passed away, and then her family made her sister marry my great-grandfather.
Wow.
And that was in the late 1890s.
Where was this? In America?
Yeah, in Kansas and Indiana. Like the family was back in Indiana, and they said, hey, we don't want to lose control of the grandchild. You have to go marry your sister's husband or widow. Yeah.
Because it was so much also just it had nothing to do with love in many, many ways. It was about procreation and about like running the farms and all of that. Like, they probably knew that he needed help keeping the grandkids alive and running the farm or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
God.
I always felt that was unfair to my great grandmother. I mean, she said that
Yes.
she
Hell yes.
eventually learned to love my great grandmother,
Jesus.
but it wasn't
Learn
like
to
that was her
love.
sister's husband. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't like somebody she
Man.
chose.
One year
Yeah.
you're opening up Christmas presents with them, and the next year, Jesus.
In the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church actually expanded the definition of family and said that it was incest to marry in-laws, the kin of godparents or godchildren,
Jesus.
the relative of someone you had once had sexual intercourse with.
What? What is it? I'm
Yeah.
not following. You're not
So,
allowed to have marriage. You're not allowed to marry somebody when you had.
yeah, if
What?
you had had sex with somebody,
Okay.
you couldn't later marry her sister because that would
Oh,
be considered incest.
incest.
Incest, yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was also forbidden to marry a relative of someone you had previously promised to marry, but had not married.
Wow. That's just a bad idea in
Yeah,
general.
yeah,
Move on.
yeah.
Move on.
But you see, kind of that last example, you see how maybe it's a way, like these incest taboos are a way to kind of keep the harmony in a family.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, yeah, if you marry somebody who you had promised her sister, you would marry her. And
Yeah.
you could, I mean, that
Oh
would
my
like really
God.
disturb the family.
Yeah. That's not gonna. That's not gonna go over well.
Right. Also, in some cultures throughout history, there have been examples of siblings marrying. And usually people talk about in Egypt, the pharaoh would marry his sister, or like think in ancient Peru, the Incans royal family could marry sister. And again, it was a way to avoid succession problems or like inheritance problems. So in other words, instead of having the the heirs try to kill each other, you would
marry
have
him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But again, it's not love or it's not
No.
religious purpose. It's about keeping the property together,
Yes.
keeping the economics together.
My God, yeah, and that was the way it was.
Yeah.
It's only recently that we got to send him flowers on Valentine's Day.
Right. Think about it.
So bizarre.
Pros and cons.
Yeah.
There's also some cultures where they make a distinction between parallel cousins and cross cousins.
What?
So a parallel cousin would be the offspring of your mother's sister.
Wait a minute. Slow down.
Okay.
Offspring of my mother's sister. Okay. That's
or
a
your
cousin.
father's brother.
Okay. Those are parallel?
Those are parallel cousins.
Uh-huh.
Cross cousins would be the offspring of your mother's brother.
Oh, right.
Or your father's sister.
Okay. Right. Aren't those called like once removed or something? I never understood that.
Yeah.
Second cousin versus once removed. Anyway.
Yeah.
But okay. That's okay. You're getting into the weeds there. But yeah. Okay. So just don't marry within that group. Go outside the group.
Well, the thing is, they say parallel cousins are considered members of your immediate family. So your mother's children from your mother's sister would be considered like your brother and sister as well.
Yeah, okay.
Even though they're your cousin, but
right.
they consider your brother and sister.
They're your first cousins, and that makes sense. Okay.
But the offspring, the children of your mother's brother would be considered your cousin. They're your cross cousin, and therefore you can marry them.
Jesus. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Interesting that it follows the matriarchal line.
Yeah.
The matriarchal line is okay, but once you go down the male line, it's now suddenly okay.
Yeah,
not okay. I mean, or wait, is okay to marry.
Yeah. We'll have to do it. I mean, because this is 9.5 font. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it's all about lineage. And so some cultures trace lineage through the father, it's patrilineal, and some trace it through the mother.
Yes.
And a lot of Native American cultures here in North America are matrilineal. So they trace it through the mother's lineage.
And the Jews are matrilineal.
Are they really?
Yeah. If your mother's Jewish, then you're Jewish.
Okay.
But if your father's Jewish and your mother isn't Jewish, then you're not Jewish. It goes through the women.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, but they trace the the lineage is coming through the father, though.
Yes, right. But the tribal, the Judaism, the tribe side is, isn't that wild?
Interesting. And so anthropologists have tried to come up with some of the reasons why every culture has this incest taboo.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons they say is they come up with a couple theories. One's the natural aversion theory. And that is, it says that people who have grown up together have a natural aversion to mating with one another.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Yes.
Yeah. They always go back to, there was a study done in the 60s about children that were brought up in a kibbutz in Israel. And they weren't biologically related, but they found that they really didn't want to have sex with each other.
Yeah, you know too much.
Yeah.
There's no mystery. There's no nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I know that there have been theater companies I've worked with, though, where everybody's having sex with everybody.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But we come in later. But yeah, that's my theory of college. If the undergraduate college was 8 years long, everybody would have sex with everybody by the end, by graduation. Every single person.
I always, that's one of the reasons for online, which I love online dating. That's how I met Mary. Was that I was able to. Yeah, you were.
I was your wingman. Your wingman.
You got me on there.
I know.
I'm not into.
I signed you up.
So, yeah,
I forced you.
But the thing was to try to go meet people who weren't within our same group of friends and about people we had worked with. And then come to find out Mary even has friends who went to Northwestern.
Of course.
Who knows
because
everybody.
We're all connected. Yes.
Yeah.
But you gave up. I mean, you went through different phases. You went through a phase where, this is amazing. And then you went through a phase of, I can't do this anymore. I'm quitting.
Right.
And then you took a break. And then I cajoled you. Others, you decided, go back on. And then, boom, Mary came in.
Right.
That was amazing.
Best thing ever happened in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. And I feel like I should be, I don't know, rewarded for that in some monetary way.
What kind of
I was a matchmaker. Matchmakers get paid.
What kind of worldview are you from? What kind of crazy worldview are you going from? Observe the taboo, the friendship taboo. The other thing is the inbreeding theory, which is people don't. The incest taboo is there to keep people from inbreeding. The only thing, though, is that at inbreeding, we had that taboo before people knew about genetic inbreeding.
Exactly. It's sort of like saying the reason that people kept kosher was because pork spoil, trichinosis or whatever would and that doesn't track because people didn't know. It took a long time,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The other one's the family disruption theory, and that is if sons and daughters mated with moms and dads, this would create competition within the social group. And then people would know there would be role ambiguity. Like you would know, like, hey, are you my brother, my dad? Are you?
Yes. God, are you my uncle or my brother? Jesus. No. No.
Who's giving me gifts at Christmas and who's not giving me gifts at Christmas?
Who has the keys to the car?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Who's paying when we go to the football game? Who's paying for everything?
Yeah.
My dad, my brother, my son, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And but the anthropologist Konrad Kotak says that in primates, he kind of supports this family disruption theory. He says in primates, adolescent male monkeys and female apes will usually leave their home group when it's time to go mate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And start a new group, or do they return?
They get adopted into another group.
Wow.
So they go out and mate into another group.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it reduces incest.
It's like moving to a new city where nobody knows who you are.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Start over. I'm starting over.
Mm-hmm.
But he says that some DNA shows that like male monkeys have had sex with their mothers.
Oh,
so there's always that possibility.
Jesus.
Yeah. And finally, this is kind of the one that I think is probably the most convincing for me, is the theory of expanding social alliances. And again, we've talked about it already, but if you marry or breed within your own group, there's no advantage to that. You're not bringing anything new to the group.
Yes. And that's it. It's not the family reunions are really, really boring.
Yeah, it's very small. You save money. It's small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You save money. I remember when Jennifer came to the first Lehr reunion.
Yeah.
And boy, she was the belle of the ball because they all wanted to meet her. You know, finally we had something. Whenever anybody brought somebody else new, it was like, oh, thank God.
That's it. Like Mary has her family here in New Mexico. There's so many. They're originally from here, and there's so many branches of it. Like she'll run into cousins. Like we saw one of her cousins working at CVS, and Mary hadn't even known. She was like, "Hey, what do you know?"
Wow,
my cousin's working at CVS.
And but you're the interesting element.
Yeah,
it's like here's John.
Yeah. They had me MC their family reunion.
Oh my God. I would have loved to have been there for that. I bet you were fantastic.
It was fun. It was very fun. But, so again, it's this idea of wanting to protect our alliances, our economic power, expand our economic power, which probably
make it bigger rather than keep it the same or make it smaller. Right. That makes sense.
And there's different types in anthropology. They identify different types of marriage. Endogamy, for example, is marriage within your
with a dog. With a dog. No,
I never noticed that. I'm going to send that off to
endogamy.
Endogamy. Okay. So ogamy, like marriage, like monogamy, or bigamy, for example.
Right.
But this is endogamy. So in meaning within your group.
Wow, Jesus.
Yeah. Within your kin group. So you'll see, for example, certain ethnic groups or, different religious groups will say we can only get married to other members of this group. So they're trying not to, get outside influences.
Okay. Gotcha.
And Ferraro and Andreatta actually say in this country, we also have something called class endogamy. Meaning that we usually only marry people from our own social class and who have the same educational background we do.
Okay.
So even though we can all marry whoever we want,
right?
Generally, rich people will marry rich people, and poor people will marry poor people.
Yep.
And the other one is exogamy, which is when you marry outside your kin group. And this is usually what most people do. It's also the reasons why kings in the old days used to marry off their daughters, marry off their sons. It's also why, kings would take many wives. Like if you want to go to the Old Testament, you have Abraham, David, King Solomon.
Right.
All had multiple wives. The reason was not because they just loved everybody. It was more that with each marriage you would form another alliance.
Yes. You're like a tribal leader, basically.
Right. And King Solomon was supposed to have had 700 wives and 300 concubines.
That's insane. Somebody added a zero by accident at some point.
Just imagine the anniversary cards. like that's like 2 anniversary cards every day. Forever.
Jesus.
Forever. More than that.
Oh, I can't imagine having more than one partner. That just sounds horrid.
Yeah, me too. It
just sounds exhausting.
Ugh. Everybody's got something they want you to do.
Wait, what? What's wrong?
Yeah. What did I do? I didn't make your bed right.
Wait. But
the dishwasher, I didn't do the dishwasher.
I did it. Oh, that was at the other. Okay.
There's 30 of your wives are here to complain about you.
Yeah, no.
The other thing that was kind of interesting is historically it was seen as unseemly to love your wife because your wife, love was associated with lust. And so you weren't supposed to love your wife.
It wasn't respectful.
Right.
It was like you lessened the value of the relationship by making it just about, you know what? I get that because the sex is important.
Yeah.
But it's just a small component to what it means to be intimate with somebody, and that makes sense.
but
if you're just
but I
all
think
you want to do is, just, hit that,
what was your why? I mean, you would still go out. These were, back in the Middle Ages and back in Roman times, they would still go out and have mistresses. Like you would go out and have a mistress who you would have sex with, but for your wife, it was like
that would be.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like something just concocted by a bunch of guys who want to have sex with lots of other people.
Yeah.
Oh no, honey, no.
Well, also
that would be
has
beneath
to do
you.
with the idea that people had up until probably the beginning of the 20th century is that women didn't have sexual urges or didn't have a sex drive.
Right.
So it was like
you get to hysteria and they
yeah
a bunch of guys figuring stupid shit, saying stupid theories.
Elizabeth Abbott in her book notes that the Roman philosopher Seneca once said that nothing is more impure than to love one's wife as if she were a mistress.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a guy who's saying, I need to have a mistress.
Yeah.
To me. Saying, look, honey, I wouldn't put you through that. I love you too much to not cheat on you.
Yeah. I'm doing this for you.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
You should be thanking me for going out.
Yeah.
And there was also, the adultery. It was like adultery was acceptable for men, but not acceptable
for women. Yeah. One of millions and millions of double standards.
Right. And then let's see, what else do we have? In 164 BC, a Roman senator was actually expelled from the Senate for kissing his wife in front of his daughter. That was even his own.
God. Yeah, I agree with that. My daughter doesn't want to see that. I'll tell you that much. She's like, no. No affection at all. It was my son's birthday today, and I said, I was talking. I wasn't being prurient in any way, but I was saying, your mother and I made you, and they were just, no, I don't want to know.
You don't want to know about that. You don't want to know about that.
No, they don't want to know.
That's so funny. In her History of Marriage, Stephanie Coontz talks about how, everybody always refers back to this golden age of traditional marriage, of when was the golden age of traditional marriage. And they talk about it as if it was back in this mythical past.
Right.
Right.
It wasn't. No. You read the history and it was not pleasant.
Yeah, there was divorce. There was people. I mean, there was a time where people, you just get married by a vow of intent. If people just said we're married, it didn't matter where it was. It didn't have to be in a church. Didn't have to be by with a license. You just said, "Hey, we're married," and people had to accept that. Even the church had to accept that.
Wow, vow of intent.
Yeah, and she says that really this idea of the traditional marriage where you have a male breadwinner who goes off to work every morning and a female homemaker who stays home to take care of the house really only goes back to a period, 2 decades between 1950 and 1970.
And by the way, everybody was on pills and unhappy and it was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Oh.
And she says that really, it was a reaction, that idea of trying to promote this traditional marriage. Man goes off to take care of the wife.
And the beavers. Leave it to beaver. Yeah.
She said that was a result of the 2 decades that had come before, where the 30s you had the Depression.
Yeah.
Where families were being broken apart. And suddenly dad couldn't get a job and mom had to start doing sewing and had to, bake pies or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then you had World War II where people were going off to war.
Right.
And
women were building the airplanes and the bombs and everything.
Exactly. And then, another thing that happens when you go off to war is like the people that are home, they may have relationships again with people that are there, or even the people who are deployed may have relationships.
Yes. And don't forget about the Roaring 20s.
Yeah.
When everybody was banging everybody.
Exactly.
Free for all.
Yeah.
It's like the 70s.
Right. Because it was a lot of women's rights came about in the 20s. Like not only the ability to vote or the right to vote, but also you had women going to college more, and women starting their own careers.
Drinking.
Yeah.
A lot of drinking.
So again, when we talk about this age of traditional marriage, really, it's such a finite period.
Yeah.
You know,
it's so interesting because you peel back anything and you realize that our conception of what it is just not the case at all. It just falls apart. Yeah. And here marriages is this thing that we think is the fabric of our society. We look at it, the fabric of our society. And yet when you kind of pull those fibers apart and look at it closely, there's nothing there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
And it's this idealized version of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you have to not look, you don't want to see the truth of it, I guess. Right.
We can't handle the truth.
Right. Right. And there were, divorce rates, like people were getting divorced in the 1700s. There was divorce during the colonial period.
Oh, yeah.
It was very hard sometimes for women to get divorced in the 19th century and the 1800s because women had to show abuse. They had to show that they were being abandoned or abused. Men, all they had to show was that the wife was, she's adulterous. I'll just get divorced from her for that. And the other thing, prior to the 1930s, everybody in the family had to work,
right?
To make it,
right.
And if you see photos taken in the tenements of New York in the 20s or early 1900s, you see the whole family sitting around the table doing piecework. Little kids and the mother, they're all sewing or they're all putting together little paper flowers, and it was because everybody had to pitch in. You couldn't have just one guy do it. And Dad would go off. He'd probably get his arms yanked off at the factory or something. Right. And then what do? All the kids have to go steal some fruit from a push cart or something.
Yeah. Which is hard because those guys pushing those push carts, they have a good eye.
Exactly.
The key to stealing fruit from a push cart is you create a distraction. Yeah. Look over there and then grab a pear and run like hell.
This is more, we're getting into some practical knowledge. This is practical training, survival training.
Right. Out in the field.
Yeah. But the 50s also coincided with television and with consumer culture.
Right.
And so what did you see on television at that time?
The idealized version, one person's version. And the creators of those shows and the writers of those shows didn't have those kinds of families.
Right.
They wish they had those kinds of families. And so they write about it. It's sort of an extension of their own, fantasy.
Yeah.
And it never existed.
Yeah. I would, my mom and dad got divorced when I was really young. And so in the early 70s. And so my mom was working like 2 jobs. Our lights were getting turned off. We were moving from apartment to apartment. And so all I saw was reruns of Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was perfect. Like it seemed like the perfect life. Like Beaver, I could take or leave. Wally seemed like a good older brother.
Right.
And then Ward sitting down there in his cardigan reading a paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dishing out advice. I kind of created him in my mind. My shrink was talking about that one time. Like, you seem to have like Ward Cleaver down in your psyche somewhere telling you what to do.
Yeah.
We had to get him out. Part of my therapy was like, get the fuck out of my living room.
And because then and only then can you truly honor your mom, who was this amazing, not that you didn't, but I mean, you can truly honor this amazing woman. And my mom was the same way, working 2 jobs, typing at night. And working in the day, full job during the day, and then type lawyer's paper because she was a great typist.
Yeah,
and she anytime I hear the typewriter, I fall asleep. It makes me get cozy.
Yeah, no, like your mom was the same. Your mom was so sweet and kind, but you could tell like
ass off.
Yeah.
And my dad, and they were married, but my dad, was just not successful in any way, and was, was unable to do it. So she had to do it all. So in a weird way, she was just as a single mom as your mom was. She just happened to be married.
Right, exactly.
she had another mouth to feed, which was my
Yeah.
dad. You know,
Which, I mean, that was always the sense at your house, was that your mom just was holding it all together.
Yeah, she ran the show. Yeah.
And she also was able to go out and have her own career with like protesting and stuff as well.
I know. She was amazing.
Yeah. So just to kind of sum up here and kind of a couple of things before we end it, some interesting marriage customs from around the world. The Na people in Yunnan province in China, they're a group of about 30 to 40,000 people, don't really believe in marriage. And so brothers and sisters live together and raise the sisters' children who are fathered by other men.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So they still have the incest taboo.
Right. They don't have sex, but wow. Yeah. Now that's a brother, you know? Wait, you got another one?
Yeah.
Connie, please.
Yeah.
Look what I'm doing here.
I'm trying to sneak out and have sex with somebody else, you know?
Oh, that's so funny.
In China also, there's something called Mingun, which is an afterlife or spirit wedding, which is like if where two people have died, their parents will arrange for them to be married in the afterlife.
Oh,
isn't that sweet? So they're not alone.
Yeah. Don't marry me off once I die. Okay?
You just wait.
I don't want it. Please.
Yeah.
Just let me be single in the afterlife.
It's gonna be a silent auction. Who gets
Jesus. All right.
I have to look at this too, but I read in one of these books, it was a brief sentence that said, in France, if the president of France allows it, a person can marry a dead person as well. But I don't know that. Don't take my word for that. I have to double check that.
Of course.
I have to double check that. In Sudan, a New Era woman, NUER, which is a group in Sudan, if her father has only daughters, he can marry off one of his daughters to another woman to be like a surrogate son to pass on his lineage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. And so then two women are married.
Two women are married, and
the families are connected.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And the lineage continues because they'll have a surrogate father impregnate or have a child with the wife in the relationship.
Wow.
But yet the mother, the father's daughter will be the actual father of the child.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now that's progressive. Jesus. That's amazing.
And also in certain Native American tribes, they have 3 genders, not 2. You'll have a male, female, and a berdache, which is a 2-spirit person or 2-spirit gender. And for 2-spirit people can actually get married to, 2-spirit woman or 2-spirit man can actually get married to another male or female.
Wow.
And that's acceptable in certain Native American cultures.
Wow.
And then it used to be a tradition in the United States beginning in the 1830s that they would have something called husbandless weddings and brideless weddings. And that's where prominent people in a town would dress up and drag. and then it was like a fundraiser. Prominent people like, oh, the mayor's dressed up like a bride. And then they would put on a performance of the wedding. So it was called like a brideless wedding.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
They would marry the mayor dressed as a woman. A male mayor dressed as a woman would be married to some other mocker in the community.
Right.
Some guy as a fundraiser, kind of a fun.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really.
And it was kind of like a wink to like, oh, this could never really happen. But the thing is, it still had you had prominent people dressing up in drag.
Yeah. And going through a rite that is been around forever. That's so interesting. Yeah. God, we're weird, aren't we?
Yeah. And they said that people would, like when they were putting on the shows, it really allowed people to kind of be bawdy and kind of do, like the mayor could really play it up of like, it was a pregnant bride or it was a shotgun wedding or something.
Interesting.
But again, it's like that started in the 1830s and went all the way through the 1930s. And drag is nothing new. Our great grandparents' generation knew about drag.
Yes.
We're still here. We're still okay. Everything's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And then finally, we all know about polygamy, which is like one man, and usually it's polygyny, which one man and multiple women.
Mm-hmm.
But there, in certain parts of Nepal and the Himalayas, there's a practice of polyandry, which is one bride and multiple husbands. And usually they're brothers. Well, multiple brothers will marry one wife.
Interesting.
And
Jesus, that's so
and again,
wild.
it's one of these are cultures where, usually there's more men than women in the culture.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
And then also, you can't divide up the property. Like the groom's family wants to keep all the property together.
Right.
So each son can't get a part of that property. So you'll have each son marry the same woman.
I see.
Yeah.
That's crazy. What a solution.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess with the polyandry in Nepal, you see, John, sometimes it really is Adam, Eve, and Steve.
You're absolutely right.
So,
this stuff, it's so interesting. And when you kind of walk through history, you realize that there's this sort of need to say, no, things are changing. I want to keep them the same. But then when you look at the same, there is no same.
Right.
There is no way.
Yeah.
And then, and it all falls apart.
Yeah.
But we need that because we're so terrified that things are going to change in a way that we can't handle. But we're
confused.
Yeah.
We're confused.
And boy, do people hate confusion.
Yeah.
We hate it.
And it's marriage has always been very fluid. It's changing.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what your worldview is, I think, it's just something to be aware of, that this is how, like you say, what is normal? What has been normal throughout history? And it's changed. It's always changed. And to me, I don't know. I think as long as, consenting adults love each other and want to be together and nobody's being forced to be together, you're an adult, you're consenting, you can leave if you want. To me, as long as it's love, we can't have it, we need more love in the world, I guess. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. It sounds like we can't really fight it anyway. I mean, it's just in our nature to find our own ways and to find the ways that work best for us.
Yeah.
Over time, anyway.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, this was fascinating.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what is in Moonstruck? What is it when, do you love her, Loretta, or something? Or do you love him, Loretta? That line is just like, I don't care. If you say, do you love her, Loretta? Do you love them, Loretta? I don't care. And then was it Nicolas Cage's character says, like, yeah, but love doesn't make things nice. Something like that. So, anyway. All right, John.
Nice. You had Cher at the beginning and Cher at the end. I love it.
Adam, Eve, and Steve at the beginning. Adam, Eve, and Steve.
And Cher with both of them.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
It was a quadruple.
So intricate. These storylines are so intricate.
God, this is good. Well, thank you so much. This is John Lehr, human number 2.
And this is John McCray, human number 1. Thank you for listening, everyone. And if you enjoyed this podcast and found it interesting, please tell a friend about it. And John, I was thinking people need to do this like animal. They need to, you invite some people over for dinner. A few couples, like 8 of you. And then
surprise them. God, my dad did that to a bunch of our friends. It was one of the worst nights of our life. I was so embarrassed. We made them all sit down and did a slideshow.
Yeah.
Anyway,
serve the food first.
Yeah, serve the food first. Yeah, but seriously, if you could pass it on to a friend, that's the only way we're going to grow. And we just crossed 500 downloads.
Wow.
Which is not a lot, but in our world it is. Look, you got to have 500 before you have 501.
Glass half full, guy.
Glass half full.
The other thing
thing
we could do is I think we should try to get accredited to where people can get college credit for listening to this.
Well, that's a fantastic idea. Now you're talking big. We get into the government.
Yeah. Tuition. Part of your tuition you get.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Listen to 10 of these, you get an associate's degree. an anthropologist.
I'm learning. I'm learning a lot. I love this. All right. Thank
John.
you, everybody. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John, and thanks for listening to everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.